So here's something that I've noticed that barely anyone is currently talking about in this way. While the world is watching tanks and trenches, a different war is unfolding in our plain sight. Not by bullets nor bombs, it's the collapsing birth rates, empty nurseries, and nations slowly dying from the inside. This is the war over people, and most don't even realize that it's happening. And no, this isn't just about how many kids people are having, it's about raw global power. Because once a country can't replace its own population, everything starts falling apart. The economy weakens, the military shrinks, the culture starts to erode. And we're already seeing that happen. If there's no one left to fight, build, or even lead, then how do these countries even stay relevant? That's why this topic matters, probably more than most people even realize. Let's start at the root cause of this all, shall we? Why does population even matter in geopolitics anymore? Why are leaders panicking about people not having kids? Now, for a while, the reality of population to any nation state didn't really feel like a big deal to them. In fact, we were told that overpopulation was the crisis, right? But now it's flipped. Countries like Japan and South Korea are both literally running out of people to even stabilize their own countries. As of now, Japan's already one of the oldest countries on Earth, and South Korea, the birth rate just dropped to 0.72%, which is insane. That's not even close to what is needed to replace the current generation for those respected countries. And this isn't just a society is aging kind of thing, it's a power issue. Fewer younger people means fewer workers, fewer soldiers, fewer taxpayers. And that has a huge ripple effect on everything from defense budgets to political stability. Meanwhile, you have India, who just recently surpassed China as the world's most populous country in the world. And that actually changes everything. A growing population means more leverage, more labor, and a bigger future military pool to utilize over other countries. This is why population concerns are coming back on the radar for every major government. Now, I personally think the obsession with peace, stability, and comfort has created this apathetic, passive mindset across modern society. The state reinforces it, because without any real external struggle, there's really nothing to push people toward a greater purpose. No reason to fight, build, or even care at all. It simply justifies basically doing nothing, while ignoring the biological need in order to keep a country alive in the first place. Like I said in my last video, you've got a massive number of young men, mostly in first and even in second world countries, who are lonely, aimless, and completely directionless. It's also happening to women too, just in a different way. And if a country really wants to call itself a superpower, or even pretend to be one, it needs to have a stable and or growing population, not a decreasing one. Just take a look at India. They're passing China in population, and that alone shifts the power balance in the region. They're technically a superpower now, not just because of the tech or even the military, but because of their population that is growing. Without that base, without people, superpowers obviously collapse. And honestly, we're really going to start seeing that play out in our lifetime. Now, here's the part no one really wants to talk about, and that is the cultural angle. Most first and second world nations today have a very much so what you want to call a gynocentric culture. What I mean by that is, society values are being shaped through a female-centered lens. The way society functions, what's incentivized, what's acceptable, what's even promoted, all of it is coming from that direction. That's why you're seeing more women who are delaying marriage, avoiding family building, and choosing freedom, because the culture and the government itself rewards those choices. And this is where the real problem hits. As a man myself, it's already tough to start a family with how expensive life is, and with an unstable global economy. Now add in a culture that basically worships women and puts all the power in their hands, and you're left with a society that doesn't even know if it even really wants to reproduce at all. I'll go deeper into that later, but that's the foundation of where all of this is heading. But some governments aren't just watching this collapse even happen, they're actively trying to reverse it, and in some cases, they're getting pretty aggressive about it as well. There are countries now treating their birth rate like it's a national security threat. You have Hungary, for example, which is basically paying its own people to have more kids. We're talking about tax cuts, cash incentives, loan forgiveness, which is granted to its citizens if you have 3 or more kids. And it's not just about boosting numbers though, it's about shaping the population in a way that it fits a national vision. Like, Orban isn't just saying have more kids, he's saying have more Hungarian kids. Russia is also another example here. After losing a small portion of young to middle-aged men in Ukraine and watching their birth rate slowly tank, they've been trying to push their own people to have more kids kids as a patriotic duty or rather an act. You're not just raising a family, you're saving the country. And even in China, they're trying to enact a form of policy that allows them to recover from the effects of the one-child policy that they had so many years ago. They started offering benefits to couples to have more children, especially in areas where they want to promote more Han Chinese dominance. So yeah, this is where population meets policy meets power. And it's very geopolitical because the size and identity of a nation's future population is part of the long-term strategy here. I'll say this, it's all going to come down to how these countries shape the policy around the woman, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who make the decision. You can change the laws, you can build out new economic incentives, but if the women don't choose to take part in it, none of it really matters. And that right there, that's where progressivism, especially in the West, has already changed the woman's mindset. It's not just about careers anymore, it's about control, about personal freedom. And yeah, that plays directly into choices around childbirth, raising a family, or even having one in the first place. But here's the other problem with incentives. It doesn't affect everyone in the same way. If you got a more tight-knit, in-grouped minority population, they're going to take advantage of those benefits more than the general native population will. Just look at Hungary. The Roma population, they've been the ones using these incentives way more than the native Hungarians themselves. And now, on top of that, Western countries and even parts of East Asia are turning to mass immigration. They're bringing in people from foreign cultures with different values, different religions, and basically expecting them to just assimilate. But let's be honest here, that's not really easy. It's a messy process. It creates friction that we all see and know, but the governments are doing it anyway because they don't have enough replacement births to keep the economy alive. And that is the primary reason that they're doing this. And I think we all know that, hopefully. Now, some countries will even go a step further here and use migration as a weapon. You flood your competitor with people they can't absorb, and now they're distracted, unstable, and trying to manage their own internal chaos. Honestly, it's a very smart tactic, I'll say. You get rid of the people who's probably causing the issues at home and then dump them into your rival's backyard. And then there's the most extreme possibility, the dystopian route. Governments are really starting to assign who gets to have children. Selective reproduction, to put it simple. I'm talking about artificial births, pods, and yes, even something straight out of The Handmaid's Tale. As wild as that sounds, I think it's on the table, because governments know what happens when a nation runs out of people. History has shown it over and over again. No population, no power, and they all know it. But here's the thing, it's about the type of society a country wants to build, and that's where the ideology part kicks in. We're basically watching a silent war between different worldviews. On one side, you got liberal democracies where people are prioritizing career, freedom, and personal choice for the individual. And on the other side, you got more traditionalist or authoritarian societies where the state, religion, or national identity plays a much bigger role in shaping the family life. In the West, people are delaying marriage and having fewer kids, and in some cases, skipping parenthood altogether. That's freedom, right? But with everything, freedom itself also has a cost, and it's showing up in the numbers as well. Meanwhile, places like India, or even Orthodox Jewish communities in Israel, are having tons of kids, not by accident, but as a part of cultural or even religious mission to do so. That creates a totally different future for their own demographic landscape and the region as a whole. And here's why it matters globally. If one ideology is reproducing itself more than the other, it eventually wins, not through war, but through outliving the competition and by having quantity as well. Now, what I'm about to say here is going to be very heavy because it cuts into the reality of individual freedom between men and women. When I talk about freedom in the modern world, the truth is, women today, especially in Europe, the Americas, and yes, even in East Asia, have more civil liberties than ever before. They're focused on their careers, they're out earning men in a lot of areas, and honestly, they don't really need a family to live well in this day and age. That's part of the problem when it comes to growing a family and obviously increasing the birth rates. Now, add into the fact that women also hold power when it comes to abortion. And look, I'm not talking about cases of assault or serious medical risks. That's different. Those are actually valid. But in a lot of other cases, it's become a form of somewhat of a control, a way to avoid responsibility or even accountability for choices made in the bedroom. That's just the honest reality of it. Then there's the selectivity problem. You've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of the women go for the top 20% of the men, which again leaves your average man with nothing, no family, no chance to build anything. And for men in these first and second world countries, they're becoming disposable. In places like the West, the biggest thing stopping men from even trying are basically the divorce courts and female selectivity. So with the divorce courts, especially in how it's operating, most guys don't even win. In fact, around 90% of the time, they lose. And the dating market, it's so lopsided that a lot of men are just checking out of it completely. They're done. No wife, no kids, no future in sight. And here's the harsh part. If a country actually wants to fix this, they have to reverse almost everything we've done in the name of progress. You're talking about serious cultural enforcement, something that looks a lot closer to North Korea or even, God forbid, Afghanistan. And I'm not saying I support that, but realistically, that's what it would take to actually reset the whole system. That level of control, especially on women's freedom, is the only model we've seen work in societies trying to bounce back from collapse. And again, I don't condone it. But if we're being honest here, civil liberties do come at a cost, and we're seeing that cost play out right now across the West. So for any first or second world nation to just survive in the long term, they need to return to a more traditional patriarchal structure. But let's be real, that's not happening anytime soon, because liberal democracies are far too in it. You got neoliberalism and globalism that are tied up in the idea of progress and moving that forward. They won't go backwards, not unless a collapse forces their hand to do so. And if that's what's happening now, if birth rates are already shaping power structures, then we gotta ask ourselves this: what does this look like going forward now? So if things keep going the way they are, we're not just talking about population policies anymore. We're looking at a whole new type of warfare. Countries might start using surrogacy systems, genetic policies, or even selective immigration to reshape their demographics faster. And others might even weaponize a collapse, like flooding a rival country with refugees to destabilize it, or draining another nation's youth by offering them better economic opportunities abroad. That's not some dystopian sci-fi plot, that's soft power turning into strategic warfare. And yeah, this stuff is already showing up on global policy debates. The EU arguing over immigration quotas, China trying to hold on to its youth, the US dealing with military recruitment crises. It's all connected to one thing: we're running out of people, and the few who are still having kids will be the ones that will be shaping the world that we'll be ending up in. This isn't a future war with tanks or missiles, it's the long game, and it's already happening, unfortunately. So here's my take on what this means for the future. We're going to see mass demographic substitution, and honestly, it's already happening. Just take a look at Western Europe and even parts of East Asia. All of it ties back to a collapsing birth rates. But now, it's just a demographic issue. It's being weaponized. Elites across the globe are all turning into this soft power tactic, one that makes them money, boosts profits, all while sacrificing their own people. And I've said this before in my earlier videos, but fine, I'll say it again, just to make it all clear. The reason behind this is simple. It's about keeping social safety nets alive. Stuff like pensions, public health care, and yes, even welfare. Systems that are already overextended and need new bodies to fund them. That's why you're seeing an influx of foreigners. And to be blunt here, many of them are just gaming the systems for their own benefit. They see it as free money, free service, and free everything for themselves. Meanwhile, it's the native population footing all of the bill through taxes and basically everything else. Long term, this really doesn't work. No country can survive if its own people are being replaced and taxed into collapse. So now, governments are left with two choices here: either push hard to increase native births, or basically open the floodgates and rely on immigration to keep the numbers up. And here's the thing: if a country plays this smart, they can turn this whole demographic shift into a power move. Think about it. If your neighboring countries don't have enough men to defend their land, but you do, then you got an opening. You can move in, take the land, exploit the resources, maybe even take over the population if you want. It's soft conquest, to put it lightly, without firing a shot. And the countries that figure that out, they're the ones that'll come out on top. Now, to wrap all of this up, yeah, this isn't just about fertility rates or marriage stats, even though it's a part of it. What it really is about is the future of global power, whether a country remains a superpower, or loses that status, or even becomes one itself. Also, it's mainly going to be about which countries are planning for survival, and which ones are pretending the collapse isn't coming. You have people like Elon Musk, who himself is even calling for people to have more kids in order to stabilize the declining birth rates, even though himself is kind of like a modern day Genghis Khan in terms of his, how would you say, procreation lifestyle. On the opposite end, you have a lot of left-wing ideologies proclaiming that the world needs less people. However, they're being selective here with their rhetoric. They will push that in Western cultures and even in East Asian ones as well, but either purposely or just outright being apathetic, as they will ignore the other regions of the world on that perceived goal or mission, if you want to call it. And while most people are arguing over the left versus right or war versus peace, this is war, the one over birth rates. It's already being fought quietly, but relentlessly. And I think we, as citizens, need to be aware of that and ask ourselves this question: what can we do to fix this issue? Other than that, guys, if you can leave a like, comment, subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I like talking with you guys in the comment sections, and I look forward to different opinions and different ideas that, of course, is to the topic at hand. Have a great day.